Okay, so today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking a lot about the organ biofeedback graphs, but we're going to do some live biofeedback because the only way you can understand some of the features of the technology is actually by applying it yourself. You know, and when I first got the system, I don't know if I mentioned, but when I first got the system, I did a lot of biofeedback just to see, you know, what my aura looked like in different circumstances. And I tell some of the stories of what I tested, but I remember, you know, doing some housework and testing myself before and after. And I noticed that when I had done housework, my root chakra went up considerably. And I think it's because I was doing manual labor. And again, when we understand the connection of the root chakra to our physicality, any kind of physical activity will stimulate our root chakra. So for me, I tell everyone, think of any kind of housework as something good to rev up your root. Rather than calling it housework, we can call it rev up your root exercises. You know, similarly, I tested everything from, you know, alcohol to, you know, dehydrating myself to overhydrating myself to doing all kinds of things to understand what the human aura looked like under these different extreme conditions. And this is why, because you have the Biopulsar, everybody who's joined us today, because you have the Biopulsar, you'll be able to note the variables of your energy from day to day based on what you do. So what you may want to do is write on the back of your aura picture or in a journal anything that you can think about that you know, helps you understand what your energy looks like. And for those of you who are enrolled in the Biopulsar training program, these exercises are part of your training because I want you to note when you have a bad sleep, what do you look like? Does your energy go down? Does it go up? Does your pineal gland change? Does it maintain the same? What are the variables? And in fact, I'm kind of laughing as I say that because if you note my pineal gland, I had a very disturbed sleep last night. So of course, if my sleep isn't good, you'll notice most of my red measuring lines are fairly consistent, except for the pineal gland. You can see it's a lot more jittery, a little bit in the cerebrum as well. But nonetheless, because the pineal gland connects to the, you know, our capability of having a good night's sleep, if we don't, then we're going to see that being affected. Breath work, you know, using different products, these are all things that are going to affect our energy. So when we look at that biofeedback application, we can monitor ourselves and monitor any shifts and variables based on what we're doing. And, you know, because when you start experiencing these different things and seeing the results on the Biopulsar, then when you come across it again, you'll note these things. You know, I'm even looking at my ear and I've noticed that my ears have been plugged lately, and we can see that energetically it's jammed. It's really high up on the biofeedback graphs, which again, you know, we have to look at why is that energetic jam. If I have any kind of inflammation here, you know, that could be the result of, you know, any phlegm or, you know, a highly aggressive type of virus or anything along that line that can be affecting. Normally my ears are in the neutral state. So I'm just going to monitor that over the next few days. Now, when I get a client for the first time, I'm not sure if the situation's been, you know, created over time or whether or not it's a moment in time. And usually when we're looking at the biofeedback graphs, it's not typically a moment in time. However, there are aspects that will affect a reading. So for example, when you wake up in the morning, you know how some mornings you feel vibrant and energetic and you're just feeling like, oh, I feel, you know, powerful and strong. Well, take a look at your aura and your organ dynamics and see how they're all going to be in the more neutral state, you know, versus on days where there's instability and you note what that instability is, then you can deduce how that was created. So again, an example would be, you know, a poor sleep, not eating well, you know, maybe arguing with someone or having conflict with someone in your life, or, you know, a death of the family, divorce, you know, and a lot of these different things that can affect us daily. I've written on the daily observation sheet, and that was one of the handouts that I shared with you guys in an email this year. If you don't recall it, let me know and I can resend it, because it literally goes through all the stresses that we can experience from day to day. And again, if you start monitoring your own energy on a daily basis, then you can understand some of the fluctuations you've seen based on maybe some of the things that you experienced within that last 24 hours. And, you know, when we look at other types of tests, I had somebody ask me that about that today. How does the Biopulsar compare to other tests? Well, I think it's all encompassing because it shows us more of the specifics of what's going on in somebody's energy. We can look at it, you know, in regards to, is it hyperactive or hypoactive? And we have to understand that our body goes through stages of stress, and this is documented scientifically in mainstream medical. They refer to 3 stages of stress. I actually put it in the perspective of the rainbow because I think we can go a lot deeper by analyzing things in regards to several layers. And because the Biopulsar also attaches every organ in a numerical value, then we can make the assertion as to the numerical value connection to the color constitution. But nonetheless, you know, I mentioned this before and I'll repeat it again. You know, I broke my jaw at 13. I smashed my 2 front teeth when I was 6 years old. I had multiple whiplashes due to a few car accidents. So therefore, I have a lot of stress in this area. And I know this is an area I have to exercise, lubricate, and do other things, yet it still isn't at a high level. So I'm always looking at when I do something and see it jump, because then that's telling me there's that connection. But because sometimes we fall into old habits or due to career and other factors, then that might compound why we see these deficiencies. So for myself, you know, I'm looking at the fact that if I have bacteria, you know, stuck in my gums because of the root canal, possibly until I clear that out, I may not see my mouth organ jump up. So when I get that done, this will be great for me to be able to share with you, you know, that these are some of the things that we don't always understand. And literally we're energy detectives when we're working with the Biopulsar, because we're trying to figure out why this organ is weak or that organ is too, you know, in excess. We have to look at some of the variables. Okay. And I don't know all the answers. This becomes, you know, a process of deduction, you know, in regards to looking at somebody's overall health perspective or overall lifestyle choices and how it might reflect them. Because again, we can go through the different organs and, you know, talk about what each one can do. And maybe you guys could even lend some credibility to some of the dynamics. But we know that the first 8 organs that we're seeing at the top of the graph, and I'll blow it up just so we get a better perspective, but you can see all along the first row, as well as the first 3 boxes, are all to do with the brain. That's everything to do with your cognitive abilities, your unconsciousness, your consciousness, as well as, you know, your higher consciousness. And we can look at the brain as broken down into different segments. The back of the brain has to do with past, which also includes past recall, past memories, taking things from the past and being able to assimilate them today, as well as how we may project the future, such as, you know, the forehead has to do with our planning and organizing skills, versus our midbrain has a lot to do with the power of now and our abilities and how we process at this moment. So again, we can look at these different brain parameters, and as long as they're well within the mid-range, I'm happy. Now mine are fluctuating a little bit. I like it when I see the graph line strong and stable, because that indicates to me that there's stability in the body. Whereas when you see these little fluctuations, as you're seeing with mine, then that's indicating some instability. And again, we have to note some things. So the first thing I might ask is, have you been sleeping well? Because I know that sleep will affect your energy. And when we see the graph lines where they're very erratic, so you can see with the knee and the elbow, that kind of deviation or fluctuation in the wavelength, in the frequency of the organ, is indicating that organ is under extreme stress. Now, the platitudes are you know, quite high. Sometimes you'll see them going from the bottom of the graph right to the top of the graph, which is indicating extreme sensitivity, instability, and usually it indicates more emotions. And again, this is where when you're working with the Biopulsar and the more readings you do on yourself and other people, you will note these things and you'll see things as well, because when you see the graph lines that are super unstable, then watch how that person is relaying. For example, they might be tapping their fingers or, jostling their feet, or, what I mean, where they're taking their knee and it's bouncing up and down. It's like a nervous tick of some sort. So when people are nervous, or like I said, very emotional, then we're going to see these different variables. So I look at that red measuring graph line to give me insight into, is that person strong and stable? Is there, some deviations? And we can marry this up to Ayurvedic medicine, because we have the 3 doshas in Ayurvedic medicine. So when you see the graph line strong and stable, that is somebody who has a kapha pulse. They're virtually unmoving. It takes a lot for them to sort of feel unstable, versus a pitta. Often you'll see the graph lines above the green harmony line and the numerical values in the 7 to 8 range, because vatas vibrate at a very fast frequency. So you're going to see more fast frequency energies, and the vibration of the graph lines will be predominantly above that green, the green harmony line. So we've got to look at some of those variables where a pitta constitution will be under the green line ever so slightly, or 2, and I would say probably from the 4 to 6 range, where, the vata is going to be from 6 to 8, and the kapha will be pretty close to that green measuring line around that 6.5 value. So again, we have to understand that we can read the different constitutions in a variety of ways, which also is in the color language. So when we look at anything that's above the green measuring line, we're going into the blues, the indigos, the violets, the magentas, the pinks, and the white. If you see an aura that has a lot of that, then again, it's somebody who has a vata constitution. And sometimes you can see it in their body frame. Usually people who are thin are the vatas. People who are a little bit more earthy looking, not heavy, but earthy looking, that they have a solid foundation, would be your kaphas. And then your pittas are often carrying a little bit of weight. And so therefore, again, we can sort of understand that is because they vibrate at a very fast, frequency. They burn a lot of energy, which is also good ammunition, because when I'm dealing with somebody who's a vata and they're extremely thin, I'm recommending the polar opposite in foods, because I don't want them to eat foods that are going to burn too quickly, because it's not going to substantiate their energy. They need slow burning fuel. Now, what are slow burning fuels, you ask me? Well, nuts, proteins, things that will actually take a while for your body system to digest. Now, on the other hand, if we have someone who is a pitta constitution, which I am in nature a strong pitta, I have to be very careful, because for myself, if I don't eat fast burning fuel, then I will gain weight. So therefore, for me, it's important to eat a lot of, salads and, fruits and vegetables, just to get my greens in, because again, I need the fast burning fuel. And when I eat any kind of protein, I have to eat it in small quantities, whereas somebody who is, what we refer to as the kapha constitution, is almost like they can eat anything, because whether it's fast or slow, their metabolism is constant and stable. Okay. And again, I use people in my office. I use the people who have taken my courses to validate these things, so anyways, it's a lot of fun when you can even start looking at it from that perspective. Similarly, we can also note how the color connects to the different constitutions in Chinese medicine. But going back to the stages of stress, I'm going to marry it into the Chinese medicine so you can see the correlation. But when an organ is first under stress or attacked, and I always like to take the liver organ, because the liver organ is a simple organ to talk about. the liver processes our food intake. So therefore, when we eat a good diet, the liver can process the food very quickly. And because there's not a lot of toxicity, we'll see the liver in that healthy green, to turquoise range. Whereas if you're eating a lot of foods that don't have substance and might be chemical, induced because it's junk food or poor quality food, fast food, whatever, then what we'll see is the liver will start to speed up and the graph line will start to go higher. And what I'm reflecting is, for example, if we look at now the thyroid, we can see that's at a hyperactive level where the red measuring line is at the top of the box. It's illustrating the number 10 value, and I can show you just by, okay, so when we go back here and we look at my thyroid gland, it is 9.96 because it's at the top of the graph. Okay, so when we look at these different factors, then this is going to indicate to us, what the state of constitution is, and other factors. So when an organ goes into hyperactivity, we'll see it going from that 6.5 or that balanced area to 7, and it'll climb to 8, and it'll climb to 9, and then eventually it'll hit 10. Now, an organ that is trying to self-repair will be hyperactive, and it will be at that high level. So as I mentioned, we're going to see it in high number values, or we're going to see it at the top of the graph. And we'll also see it in the colors that represent that. So when it's at the top of the graph, again, it's going to be pink in nature or white in nature. And then we're referring to the organ, itself. So when we see an organ at that hyper level, as I mentioned, it will function at a hyperactive level because it's trying to self-repair. And in fact, here's another little tip for you. When you see an organ white, then again, that's where the healing is happening. Also, we can see, for example, when people are suffering from food poisoning, the organs that have the food poisoning will always be in white, which is indicating that organ is working at that super fast healing energy to self-heal. Okay, so again, we can note these things just by seeing, the graphs. So going back to when an organ is hyperactive, that is referred to as the first stage of stress according to the mainstream medical model. However, an organ can only operate at a super fast speed for a certain amount of time because eventually it's like running and running and running and running and running, you have to eventually slow down or stop. And so therefore, what we're going to see next is where the graph line starts to fall. And you don't necessarily see the graph lines going down like that. Sometimes you will. However, and in fact, if we look at the upper arm, that is indicating a little bit of what I'm referring to. I'll see if there's another organ that is, indicating it more so. But you can see how the upper arm is falling down a little bit. So that's indicating that, when my arms are tired, the energy is going to fall down. Now, if I would have kept my hand on the sensor board, I would have probably seen it where it started to balance out again, and it almost looked like it was going back up. So maybe it was just trying to find stability. If I was moving my shoulder a little bit, then that could have been causing some of the, the energy to sort of, be a little bit unstable. And that's another factor. Make sure that when you're taking a reading, that people are sitting up straight, that their shoulders aren't hunched, or they're, not hunched over in a chair, rather that they're in that erect position with their back, and, that their arms not twisted. Because I was doing this on my own, and, I wasn't looking at myself necessarily, my shoulder could have been slightly a little bit uneven, causing a little bit of stress on the upper arm of the arm that I was measuring. But again, we look at some of these things, even the liver and the lungs are slightly falling down, the heart slightly falling down. I said liver, but I meant lung and heart are slightly falling down. So those are indicating to us that the energy is just sort of sliding down somewhat. And so therefore, that's showing a little bit of an energy weakness. But the upper arm would be a good example of us going from a more hyperactive stage to a hypoactive stage. Now, in this stage, it's only at about the value of about 4. However, if we start going below that number value 4, which again, we see with the numerical values, and I just have to clear my screen here again, and then just get out of there. When we go to the numerical values and the organs that are sort of a little bit weaker, we can see the upper arm is under 5, you know, which would indicate that. Now, where I'm even seeing it lower is the neck at 3.93. So in medical terms, the second stage of stress would be sort of the first area in hypoactivity between, I would say, approximately 2 to 4, because remember, 5 is normal. So as soon as we start going down under that 4 value, we're starting to go into hypoactivity, which is the second stage of stress. Now, when we bypass that stage or go through that stage, then of course, when the number value starts to slide under 2, then that is more of an acute stage of stress. And this is where disease and other situations can develop, is when the number value gets too weak, then that is indicating that the organ's health is weak. It doesn't have the repair factor. It doesn't have enough juice or energy or chi or life force to substantiate the weakness. And I kind of think of it in the way of grass. You know, when we see grass that is dying, we can see that it starts turning brown to gray. And even with the unfolding of the colors of the leaves in the fall, likewise, they go from green and then they actually turn yellow, orange, red, brown, and then literally gray, and they disappear. So in a way, this is how our organs go through its life force when it starts to go on to that hypoactive, you know, level. So you know, we can see these different stages of stress, but I want to reiterate it in color. And I'm just going to close this window, and I'm also going to just sort of minimize the screen here to go slightly quickly back to the aura. So for example, my upper arm was in that number 3 value range, and we can also see that my arm is in the orange range, so it's indicating it's even lower than that. And again, if we go to the number values, we would be able to substantiate that. But because of the stages of stress in mainstream medical, they just refer to it as 3 stages. We can actually break it down into the colors. And several years ago, this was fascinating to me, but I did something and I got a sliver right in my finger, just above my nail bed there. And I didn't realize that I had gotten a sliver there because it was so thin. And, but what I did note is that all of a sudden my fingers started changing. It literally ballooned with water. And this again is sort of what we're looking at with the stages of stress. We know that the higher frequency colors or the higher number values indicate hypoactivity. But when we go below that green line, then we get yellow. And yellow in Chinese medicine relates to toxins. And so therefore, when we see yellow present in an organ, then that can indicate a slight energy weakness where the toxins might be free floating through. That doesn't mean necessarily they're constantly in there, but they're definitely there because that area of the body is a little bit sluggish. Now, again, we can repair quite quickly by, you know, doing things right, then the energy can bounce back very quickly. It's kind of like, you know, you can be extremely tired, get a good night's sleep, and then the next morning you feel refreshed. It's the same thing with our organs. When there's stress, they can go down in energy, but they can bounce back given, you know, the right, given the right parameters to feed it the right energy to get back to that strong state again. But going back to the liver, so if we don't, for example, improve our diet, then what happens is all those toxins start to back up, and we actually start to see the aura fill more with that yellow hue, meaning the toxins are starting to go everywhere. And the thing about toxins is it becomes prime food for parasites. And I always think about, you know, because I've had dogs my whole life, you know, when a dog poops, we can actually see, if it's not cleaned up, we can actually see it degrade. And what happens is all of a sudden the flies start being attracted to the poop and they start laying eggs, and then we start seeing worms and other things manifesting. So it's the same thing in our body organs. If we see that yellow constitution for any length of time, then what's going to happen is we're going to start breeding parasites. The organ that has the yellow is where the likelihood of the parasitic growth will be. Okay, so even with myself, there's some areas of yellow, but that doesn't necessarily mean I have parasites. I literally would have to, take a look on a continual basis to see if there's anything along that line. And there are some questions you can ask. So for example, when I see a lot of yellow in the aura, and I'm only showing a little bit, and again, I can also let you know, last night I did go out for dinner, and I had a couple of beers. So that could cause a little bit of not inflammation, but a little bit of phlegm constitution with a little bit of toxicity. So, tomorrow after a good night's sleep, I've been eating well all day. I should see those areas bounce back. But my point is, when I see a little bit of yellow, I'm not panicking and going, oh my God, you're infested with parasites. Rather, I'm asking, have you noticed if your skin is itchy? And when we see yellow in the rectum, then sometimes we can note that it could be parasitic activity or worms, especially in children. And people will have an itchy anus. So again, these are some of the questions that you can always ask to determine, if that yellow energy has been prevalent for a while, or whether or not it's just maybe something new. And I had a client fairly recently where her whole aura was predominantly yellow. And I said to her, do you eat sushi? And she said, every day. And again, we have to understand there are certain foods that actually have more probability of parasitic activity. So, again, we just have to be careful that if we eat too much of one food, that again, it could cause, a problem. I had a woman who was on a watermelon diet for a month, and her whole aura was orange. And again, it was such a water imbalance. She was literally crying at the drop of a hat because she was consuming so much of the water element through her diet. It was creating a water imbalance. And that's the next stage of stress that we see on the biopulsar. Once it shifts from that yellow, our body is so clever in its repair mechanism, it creates the orange energy, and it creates the orange energy because that is the water energy, and it creates an excess of water to drown the parasites or flush the toxicity out of the organ. So we can naturally see that orange develop into an area of the body because that's what needs to happen. So what happened with me, I got the sliver, which was obviously contaminated. It must have had some bacteria or whatever, but it created all of a sudden an instant water blister on my finger. And then it started turning red because how do we get rid of the water? Well, we burn it off. That's why heat and inflammation is created in our body, just so it can flush, or pardon me, so it can burn off that excess water. But if we don't burn off that excess water, that water starts to turn into sludge, sort of like swampland. And imagine our electricity, our body's electrolyte activity or electricity trying to get through swamp water. It's impossible. So this is when the imbalance of the water element starts to happen, which is leading to dehydration, because again, when that phlegm constitution is in the body and the body creates that aggressive heat and inflammation to get rid of that excess water, then again, we're starting to go down to another stage of stress, which causes that inflammation. So what we need to do is, of course, cool down that inflammation. And in color therapy, we use the polar opposite of whatever color it is to neutralize it. So if something is hot, then literally the wavelength will be like that. And if we use a cooling color, it'll create wholeness, because we've got one wavelength, the polar opposite wavelength, and it will create that wholeness. So we want to treat with the foods and, the different energy forms that are going to, squelch the water or flush out the toxins or kill the parasites, as well as in the red constitution, we would want to use the blue energy to cool down that heatness. Now, what happens is when that fire element is in an organ, when we see that red, the next thing that the body is going to do is eventually the fire will go out and we will see gray in that organ, which is, the life force is at its weakest level. And again, that also pertains to the state of acuteness in mainstream medical. So we have to understand that these different colors, and where the graph is are identical, and we can read it in these different ways. Going back to the organ graphs, we're looking at these different things when we're looking at the organs. And I always go after anything that's at the bottom of the graph or gray in the aura, because that is indicating to me where we need to work the fastest. Because if something is hyperactive, I know it's just doing a little bit of extra work, versus when an organ is acutely hypoactive, then that is indicating that that organ is under extreme stress. It's an acute stage, you know, so therefore what we have to do is we have to, you know, make sure that we're, you know, we're trying to get the life force back there as fast as possible. And I want to touch on that quickly, because based on the organ would be based on the different things that we can do. But we have to look at the simplicity of life and the basic essentials. So the first thing I typically do is, you know, probe the client and find out a little bit more about their lifestyle choices, meaning I'm going to be asking them a series of questions, which is on your daily observation form, or it could be information that they completed on the 5-page client intake form. Okay, so however you get to it, what you want to do is you want to, you know, make sure that you're asking people questions that's going to help you understand why the situation has, you know, has been created. And that takes a bit of time to sometimes decipher this. And again, it may take a few sessions, because we have to understand people don't always have a consciousness or awareness of what they do. And it's sort of planning things and having them do things to see ultimately, you know, what makes the changes that are going to be more permanent and longer lasting. And usually we can tweak the basic essentials, you know, because again, you know, I think about, you know, one client I had, her spine was gray, which is telling me she was totally burned out, lack of energy. And I could see her pineal gland was also very weak. And she told me that she wasn't sleeping well. She was sick. She had, I think it was lymphoma, and she wasn't sleeping well. I said, well, you understand that when you're sleeping for 8 hours, this gives your body time to self-repair. So if you're not sleeping, you know, 7 to 8 hours, then when is your body going to self-repair? I said, I think you need to try things to accommodate yourself so you have a good night's sleep. And because she was sleeping, or she lived by an airport, of course, she was hearing the planes at all hours. And I said, well, you know, buy yourself earplugs. Oh, they don't work. And I can't remember some of the other suggestions that I made, but, you know, to do with insulation and I don't know, some other things. And I said to her, well, then maybe you need to consider moving. Oh, I can't move. So, you know, sometimes we can only help people so far. So take the pressure off yourself, because people will often have a reaction to what you're saying. And this is why sometimes they have to hear it over and over and over again before maybe they'll attach themselves to the situation, because sometimes we don't always want to divulge things right away because we're not comfortable or confident enough to be able to say these things. And again, sometimes you have to just ask the right questions. And that's where please trust your intuition to guide you as to what some of the questions might be in regards to that person. Sometimes I'll even ask people, you know, have you ever had an accident or damage in that area? So that way, again, we can, you know, just sort of decipher if there's any possibilities in regards to, you know, some of the things that could have happened in their life. But you have to ask a lot of questions to determine, you know, what some of the possibilities might be for that client in regards to, you know, their energy dynamics. So going back to the graphs, most of my lines are sort of in the middle. Again, we can see some instability. Again, if you were to ask me some questions such as, you know, how is your sleeping? Are you drinking enough water? You know, things like that that are just common things. But one of the things I wanted to get into today was just showing you some of the biofeedback applications. So this way you can understand some of the things that you can do in your own practice to encourage people to make these lifestyle changes. So one of the things that I did is I brought some nutrition by me, and when you have the organ biofeedback graphs, you get these belts, and in these belts you can actually put vials, and some companies provide what we call testing vials. Even Color Energy has testing vials of different products. So we have, for example, our Chakra Light essences that are color coded to the specific frequencies. So if I want to test a product to see the improvement of that chakra as well, I do have a test kit here of nutrition that I can use that helps me decipher, for example, what nutrition would be good for me. So one of the charts that I made was a nutritional chart. And even though it's based on one company, you can do the same thing with any nutritional company products. So if I look at, and let's take, because I'm seeing here, the thyroid is hyperactive. So when I take the thyroid, let's see if it's something easy enough for me to test. Yeah, Daily Bio Basics Proanthanol. So I can use this like a multivitamin. And ooh, I forgot to check what number that was. That was number, I'm going to test number 5. So all I have to do is take the vial that has the nutrition in it. You can also take the bottle. Okay, whatever works for you. Because with the testing vial, and I think I'm going to have to do the bottle because I grabbed the wrong band. This is for the ankle. It comes with a wristband, ankle band, as well as a headband, so you can actually put the product right on your head. I did that a little raw, but you would put it like that. Versus the wrist belt, you would put the product that you're testing into the belt, and then you would line it up on your wrist. But sometimes I find it just as easy to put the bottle or the vial right in the person's hands. So what I'm doing, and it's kind of hard to illustrate, but I've got my hand plate here, and I'm going to put my hand back on. Now, when I'm doing biofeedback, one of the things that I do is I hit, okay, so I was just mentioning that what I'm doing is I'm taking my testing vial here. Just bear with me a second. I'm taking my testing vial here, and all I have to do is hold the vial in my hand, put my other hand on the hand plate, and I will get live biofeedback as to if this product is good for me. Now, I've pressed my red measuring button in, which is consecutive recording, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to deactivate the clock, which makes the recording live now, and I just put my hand on the hand plate with the vial, and then what we do is we just wait for the graph lines to stabilize, and then we can see if this product or remedy, and I'm going to enlarge the screen to show you what I'm referring to. We'll see if this product or remedy is conducive to my overall health. Now, this is a product that I normally take, and I actually stopped taking it probably about a week ago. And so we're going to see by not having it, not taking this product, we'll see whether or not this is a product that is conducive to my energy, because not experiencing it for a few days gives me a clean reading. Okay. And we're just going to wait a little bit longer. But typically I wait about 30 to 60 seconds to make sure I have a good reading. So I'm going to freeze it here, and I can hear somebody again. So, okay, hang on here. Oops. Oh, sorry about that. I don't know if you guys are hearing what I'm hearing, but I'm getting a lot of background noise here. Okay, I think I found it. So I think I've got that. Okay. So I'm going to stop the reading here, and then we're going to compare the data. So the easiest way to compare the data is actually blowing up the screen, and to even blow it up more, I go to this button here. Oops. I go to this button here, and I apologize. I should have actually unfrozen the sensor first, and then I would have a split screen here. But where this line is, and I'll show you what I mean, actually. What I should have done was deactivated the clock, and then it would split the screen. I forgot to do that in between the two recordings. But when the screen is split, then what I'm doing is comparing my first reading to my second reading. So because this is a multivitamin, and what I like about this company is it actually shows you everything on the bottle that is contained within there. So you can actually see all the ingredients are plant-based, so it is not artificial product. If you guys want to learn about the product I use later on, let me know, and I'll send you more information. but it is an American company that sells worldwide. But for example, if we look at my cerebellum, you can see how it started to go to a stronger level. Look at my cerebrum, how it neutraled out with this product. My forehead went up in value. My temporal brain slightly went up. You know, so just looking at everything, it looks like overall I'm seeing a little bit more, stability. And oh, look at this, my ear. Look at how that went down. So we can see how a multivitamin can have an overall positive effect, you know, on the whole, because obviously a multivitamin contains a whole bunch of different, you know, nutrients that can affect all these different organs and glands. I'm an advocate that we need to be taking a multivitamin, because I just found nowadays with the depletion of our soils, we're not getting our macronutrients because our soils are deprived of the micronutrients, which are the binding agent of the macronutrients. So we need to supplement, and I actually take a daily product to help me with the absorption. It's filled with micronutrients to help me absorb my nutrition better. But we can clearly see that it actually had an effect on my ear. And I'm just going to scroll down here, or it might be a little bit easier to just review it this way. But we can see, look at it, neutralized my armpit more so. My thyroid went down in energy. Okay. Some areas there's not much change, like we can see the duodenum is just continual, the rectum is continual. And this also validates the biofeedback that the first reading is similar to the second reading, other than there's certain organs that reacted to the product that I was testing. Now, you can do multiple product testing, but sometimes it gets a little bit laborious. So this is why I like this chart, because right away I can go to what products I think would be best suitable and then refine what I'm going to test the client with. And if you want to learn more about that, I can teach you what I do more so to refine it. So this way I don't have the client's hand on the hand plate for a half hour testing different products. But normally I'll find 2 or 3 products that I know the majority of people need, such as a multivitamin, such as microminerals, you know, to be the catalyst to normalize the organs and glands in the body. So then we can, you know, do other things. Now, I thought while I'm here as well, that I'm going to test our red chakra light essence, because of the fact, and I'm just going to minimize this, my root chakra was also weak. I don't know if you guys caught that from my first reading, but my root chakra was a little bit weak. So now what I'm doing is I'm holding this essence in my hand, and we're just going to see how that affects my body dynamics. Now, normally when I do product testing, I don't look at the screen. I actually close my eyes. I do exactly what I tell my clients to do, because when I take a reading, I don't want them to be looking at the screen, because obviously they can get excited when they don't understand what the screen presentations are indicating. So rather, I like to have people just close their eyes, relax, and then I just, tell them to open their eyes once I have frozen the data. So again, what I'm doing is I'm just waiting for my energy to stabilize. When you have the graph boxes, I usually let it go for about 1 minute, 1 inch, which is roughly about 30-45 seconds. Okay. So,
Susanne?
Yes.
We're not seeing any change on the screen.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Here we go. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're seeing it now. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, when we were hearing that noise, I was trying to stop things, and I guess I hit the wrong button. Okay, so I'm going to freeze the sensor data here, and then we can just sort of look at what we see when I use the red essence. So we can see my root chakra is at 47. So that did go up a few points. And there was one organ when I was looking that I could see very blatantly shifted quite a bit with the red essence. But look at my adrenals balanced out. So that's awesome, because again, anything red will support the adrenals. Okay. And maybe that's what I was noticing more so, was the adrenals. And we can see here that my lower arm went a little bit higher. It started sliding a little bit back down again, but nonetheless, that was a slight improvement. But more, I think the most noticeable thing that we're seeing here is that my adrenals balanced out by using the red essence. Because remember, when you're in a lot of stress, oh my goodness, Look at this, my mouth. Hallelujah. Okay, that is amazing. Now, I'm excited about that. So it's funny because the red essence was something I was using a lot of years ago. Now, this is telling me that actually, maybe when I get more red energy in my root chakra, it helps with my expression. Ta-da! I don't know. We could have an open dialogue on that one, but that's very exciting for me to see that. Ooh, that's exciting. I'm going to be taking a bottle of that home tonight. But so yeah, I mean, mainly we're seeing the variable would have been in the adrenal gland and the mouth organ. So when I see a couple organs responding positively for a certain reason, that gets me very excited, because then I know that's a product that's well worth looking at, you know, in regards to the client. And I can share with you over and over again, you know, with our product line, with the nutrition, I've seen phenomenal results, you know, showing people that when they get on the right nutritional protocol, on the right energy protocol, we can see a lot of shifts. And the chakra light essences are actually one of my favorite products because it is a very high vibratory product. It's embedded with a lot of coded information for different things. So the chakra lights, this one would just be embedded with everything red to super empower our energetic body with that red vibration. It will work physically, but cosmic tools work from the outside in, and physical tools like nutrition work from the inside out. So this way we're addressing both our aura as well as our physical body. Okay, so that was a lot of fun to show you guys how to test a few products and how easy it is. Just make sure that you set your parameters to be in a clinical setting where, you know, you're making sure that your people are repeating exactly the same thing, so there's no variables. I don't let the clients touch anything until I want them to touch things. So sometimes I'll have people that want to test products that they've purchased, because sometimes people have invested very heavily into things, and then the first thing I look at is, okay, why are you taking this product, and is it working? Because if it's working, then we should see that the stability in that organ, gland, chakra, or however that product is influencing us, we should see some positive results, especially if we've taken a scan of the person previously, then we have something to compare it to. Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left, and so I'm just going to sort of, let's see if I can figure out how to unmute everyone, because I haven't been doing that very, very good. Okay, I can hear you, Diego. So I'll just have you guys unmute yourself when you have a question, and then once we've, you know, had a discussion, then I'll get you to mute. Somehow I lost my mute button. Okay, so any questions?
I have a question, Susan.
Okay.
Good morning. How are you doing? I don't know what short time is there, but I'm from Australia and I'm just, sorry, a bit late. But I wanted to ask you, how did you test for the aura light, the red? Did you actually apply it on your skin, or were you using that little strap?
Well, I was indicating that you can use the strap. However, just because I was doing this myself, it was a lot easier that I just put it in my hand. And what I do is, this is my measuring hand, and then I take the bottle and I stick it in between the client or my thumb and forefinger, and then I place it on top like this.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now if it's a bottle, then I'm doing the same thing where I'm placing the bottle in between. I can also put the bottle against their thymus gland and we'll still see the reaction to the whole. As soon as the product comes within somebody's energy field, but ideally you would want to touch it as close as possible. The testing belts allow you to do things. You could even take a bottle out if you want, or pardon me, a pill out of the bottle if you want. But as long as it's, you know, fairly close to your skin, even though, you know, the bottle's in between, energetically, your physical body is picking up that frequency of what's in the bottle. So you will see results. But of course, if you take that pill out, then it's more naked. You can get it closer to your skin and possibly even see greater results. But I find that just even having the bottle, you know, just like this in between the thumb and the forefinger, we're going to see results.
Right. And the actual, when you apply it, where would you place aura light for the base chakra, for example? Would you do it in the base chakra area, or could you do it in reflexology as well?
reflexology, base chakra as well. The wrists are a great entrance point. The thymus gland is a great entrance point. So whenever you're testing products, those are ideal locations, as well as for topical application. So I teach people to put the chakra lights on their wrist, even in the palm of their hand initially when we're doing the ritual of absorbing the frequency, applying it to their thymus gland or their chakra points or wherever they feel necessary. Because, for example, with the root chakra essence, I often put it at the bottom of my feet and sometimes on the top of my feet, because there are many chakras that are also on the top of the feet. So, and sometimes I'll roll it right up my spine, especially when it's anything to do red. I actually start with the base part of my palm and then I roll it up. I take my other hand, grab the product and roll it up right to the base of my neck. So literally what I'm doing is I'm charging my whole spine with the red essence. And I do that strictly with the red, although I will also do it with medieval times or Holy Grail, because both medieval times and Holy Grail have a lot of essential oils that are really powerful. And especially with COVID right now, our medieval times has so many powerful ingredients that are known to be antiseptic, antiviral individually. So combined, I feel it's a very powerful product. And our Holy Grail contains a lot of biblical oils. And, you know, because they're biblical oils, I feel that they've been around, you know, for millennium. And so therefore they have a lot of healing power. So our Holy Grail encompasses a lot of that. So those are the three products, or, you know, I'll do anything red on my spine, the Holy Grail and the medieval times. And if people have conditions, for example, such as Lyme's disease, to actually roll essence or an essential oil along the spine would be very, very therapeutically healing. Okay.
Yep. And with the let's go. I'd like to know a little bit more about the medieval oil, but in terms of the chakra light, if you put the chakra, the red, for example, for your root chakra energy, which on your wrist, and you wanted to complement it with the chroma light. Yes. Would you use a red chroma light or would you use a violet chroma light color?
No,
just
I would prefer
what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I would match it to the frequency. So if I'm using red chakra light, I'll use the red light, because again, then what we're doing is we're making a marriage of different products that resonate at the same frequency. And we also have to understand that I always equate it to music. You know, in music, there's 40 octaves of the C note before it becomes invisible light, or, you know, on the opposite side, more dense energy. So in between that scale of music, we have all these different C notes that are the red. It's the different octaves, whether they're outside of the outside of the range of music or below it. There's all these octaves of red. And so the more tools that we use of these different octaves, again, what we're doing is we're hitting the chord of dissonance within our body from these different octave levels. So it can be very, very helpful.
Yeah. And the medieval ones, I don't know if when I visited you in Vancouver last year, did you have that in range, or is that a new?
No, we've actually had it for years now. And I think because of COVID, I talk about it much more because I understand the power and potential of it. So it's a personal product that I use a lot of now, because, you know, to me, COVID is a highly aggressive, you know, virus, I guess, or bacteria, that of what they're saying. So to me, I want to treat it with things that are going to counterbalance that type of frequency. And the medieval time to me is an awesome product for that.
Do you have it that we can see the bottle? Is that, I'm not sure if I've actually got it because I've got so much, I don't know.
Sure. Let me just grab it. I'm going to take my headset off here. And this is our lovely showroom in the background. And we've got the medieval times. It comes in a few different ranges. We have it in a 4-ounce spray. Actually, I don't know if you're hearing me. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Got my headset on, and so I left. I don't know if you guys could hear me, but we have it.
We can hear the whole time, actually. It's okay.
We have it in a 4-ounce spray. We have it in a 1-ounce spray bottle, which is great for travel size. And one of the things I'm telling people is, you know, carry this with you, because when you're around places, you can spray your hands to disinfect them. And again, I shouldn't say that because, you know, the health ministries is telling us that, yes, thyme oil is used as an antiviral ingredient, but because we put it and mix it with other ingredients, we can't make the claim that it's antiviral because now we've changed the composition of it. But needless to say, it contains thyme oil. So you can spray everything. Toilet seats. I was just on a boat taking the ferry over. Spray toilet seats. You can spray cutlery. Literally, you can spray everything with it. Even if you wear a mask, spray your mask before you put it on. That way you're inhaling some beautiful aromatherapy. And again, the essential oils, you know, will just sort of act as a, oops, sorry. I think I stuck you in here, but I can hear you better here. But the oils that are in there, like I said, are separately known for many things. And it does come in a roll-on. So this is the roll-on tip that I would use to roll on my spine, okay? And as well, it makes it easy for application. But for those that might be sharing the bottle with other people, we do have it in dropper form. So this way you would just drop out the oils and then apply them wherever you want. And we do have it as a mix as well, so you can put it in your diffusers. And last time, I think last video, I talked about using a ionizing diffuser, so this way you're getting the ionized particles as well as you're clearing any kind of you know, viruses or bacteria from your breathing atmosphere. Okay, does that help, Hanneman?
It does. It's very good to hear. Thank you. It's a shame that I'm so far away to I wouldn't be able to get the medieval oil, but the essence. But
well, we'll just have to figure that one out, right? We
yeah,
have a few.
Shame
we have
Canada,
a few.
Shipping is so much more expensive than America's. But yeah,
Well,
I'll let Debbie jump on.
Okay, and just so you know, there's a few other people in Australia. Maybe you guys can organize placing orders together, so that way you're all incurring the shipping costs.
Yeah,
okay.
Suzanne?
You.
Yes.
When you were talking about how to divide this, the different sessions in one,
yes.
I think your screen had been frozen at that point and wasn't showing that. Could you just quickly go through that again when you go from this, you know, when you're testing products and doing the different checkings?
Sure. So with the graphs, I'm just going to enlarge the graphs again. When you actually have this red button pressed in, it's what is called consecutive feed. So you'll get readings beside each other. I made one little error where I should have actually activated my clock and unfrozen it. So this way it would have split the screen here down the middle, but this is where I did, I broke from my first and second reading, and then this was my third reading, and I just want to illustrate, if I were to go on to do a fourth reading, it'll split the screen as soon as I activate the clock again. So this way you get the readings consecutively, okay?
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
It's a great presentation to be able to show the variables between reading and reading. Now, because my energy is a little bit unstable, then it's a little bit harder to do product testing, but nonetheless, we could see some great results with what I did. But often when you hit the right product, the graph lines, you'll see them will automatically go flat and be beautiful. That's when you've hit the ultimate product. And that's where, again, you have to do some investigation as to what products might be good for that person. And we could even do it through thought control, because again, I do a lot where I have people close their eyes and talk to a part of the body, or we go through some, you know, regression therapy, or doing different things that, you know, helps people release the trauma that's stored in an organ. And because we can see it live, it's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Suzanne,
yes.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
I've also been fortunate to be able to use the bands.
Yes.
And I had a couple of clients that were interested in crystals, and I was able to use the bands with the crystal, like bracelets.
Yeah.
that's what we were testing. But also, I've used the crystals, letting them hold a particular crystal in one hand, and while their other hand is on the Biopulsar.
Yeah.
And I found that it worked really, really well with the client that I had that thought she was Oprah Winfrey's best friend.
Right.
The crystals and the combination of the crystals and music and the aura spray.
Yes.
Used all of that on her at that time, and it was amazing.
Yeah, and aura spray can help balance the polarity, so it's a really nice spray to use after you've done a reading. I don't manipulate the reading in advance, so this way I can see everything as it needs to be seen without any manipulation. But
Right.
I like to end a lot of my sessions with aura cleanser just to balance out their aura after, especially if they've done some release work. Then it's just a nice product to finish the session with. Plus, it is one that I sell a lot of too, because aura cleanser helps to release lower frequencies from your aura, including EMFs. And right now we're under so much EMF attack that we're inundated. And I think this is one of the reasons why, our energy is being depleted over time, because we're constantly struggling with all these, wireless waves and unseen vibrations that are hitting us. But by using aura cleanser, what we're doing is we're sparkling and shining our aura up instantly. Okay, so there was one other thought that I had, and now all of a sudden it slipped my mind. What was it? Yeah, I think with the biofeedback, a couple of the charts that I would make reference to as well, I always like to show where the organs are on the hand, because then you can marry up what you're seeing on the graphs with the hand as well, because often where there's hardenings or deviations in their hands or bends or all kinds of different anomalies in the hand will marry up to where the energy deficiency is. So that's a nice chart to be illustrating to people in regards to their energy. And I want to go back to this one too, because with this one I've actually listed probably most of the color energy products and how they relate to the different organs and glands. So again, it's an instant reference chart. And if you guys want this, I'm happy to send this for free, because, to me, it's just, again, building up your practice by having the right support tools. How your body rebuilds. Again, this is one of my favorites, because if you see that somebody has a lot of lower frequencies in the brain, you can say, okay, look at the chart. It takes 1 year to repair the brain, meaning I'm going to put you on some nutritional protocol, or I'm going to put you on some other things that we know are going to help strengthen the brain, including maybe, doing some brain gymnastics and things like that. And then this way, what we're doing is we're supporting the client, but we have to have them prepared to know that it may take a while to repair the brain. Now, that's not to say we can't reverse things within a couple of months, but we have to understand that sometimes when there's brain fog, and poor memory, it may take a while to repair the brain when we see that there's a lot of lower frequencies going on in there. And of course, the color vibrational chart is really nice when you're looking at the different color constitutions. And even though if you're not relating it to the color, you can still relate it to the wavelength, because on the chart, and again, I don't know how to reverse it so you guys can see it, but it gives the number values. So gray is between 0 and 1.10. So that way you would know that that's in the gray color, and these are some of the, the possible indications on a physical level. And one of my newer charts is the holistic scale, which I paired up with the body map. So right away, that's for the aura reading, but again, it breaks down the colors, body, mind, and soul. So this way, a quick synopsis. So those are the couple of the charts that would go nicely with the organ biofeedback graph software. But remember, if you don't have the organ biofeedback graph software, you still have the number values, and the number values are just relaying the organ biofeedback graph information, but in a numerical value rather than a graph box. But for biofeedback, it's nice to see the red measuring lines, because you'll see if the organs are stressed, you'll see if the organ graph lines are falling or if they're raising. And I always think about, talking to a naturopath, and we he did kinesiology, and then he saw how I use the Biopulsar as a kinesiology tool. And he said, I cannot get this much information this fast. It's impossible, because with kinesiology, you'd have to go, okay, is this product good for the liver, the kidney, you know, and go through every single organ to see whether or not the strength still remained in the hand, versus with the Biopulsar, you'll instantly see it. Plus you'll see some of the variables. Because like I said, if somebody's highly emotional or sensitive, they're a little bit harder to test than somebody who's got a strong kapha constitution. And because I've done muscle testing, that's one of the things that I've noticed, is that sometimes it's hard for me to pick up if the strength is there, because the hand is wobbly right out the gate. Okay, and I know you can refine these abilities. Because I use the Biopulsar, I rely on that. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, Susanne.
Yes.
Did the Italian, I don't remember her name, she has all the products or not in Italy? Because I think it's the nearest place from Portugal.
Yeah, we're no longer supporting her.
I know? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because to me it's difficult. I have to do a lot.
Yeah. But we do have a lot of products in Norway. So yeah, go to thecolorenergy.com, I think it is /EU, and you should be able to get on their shopping center. And there's a number there that you can call, and you can talk to Martina, not Martina Gruber of the Biopulsar, but Martina of Color Energy. We have two Martinas in our life. One for,
I still have a lot of them, but I'm using for myself. Most of the products, because Chakra Light doesn't have due dates, no, have they?
That's right, because it's an alchemy tool, it virtually can last a long time. I could teach you how to, if you want, just create an energy grid to give it a boost.
Yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
With crystals?
Yeah.
They are, they are in a special energy grid.
Oh, perfect. Then they're safe, because I tell everyone, if you're concerned about the life cycle of an energy tool, you could just reboost it yourself.
No, those have 6 years. I don't know.
Oh, infinity. I can tell you that I found a box of old Chakra lights, and I'm still using them. They're perfectly fine.
Because most of the things I brought from there, I'm using to myself. So
wonderful, wonderful. Good to hear.